You're now listening to the Arsenal Therapy Podcast.
Hello and welcome back to the Arsenal Therapy Podcast. Today we're going to talk about Arsenal's attack. What's changed, what's been tweaked, and why do we look so much more fluid all of a sudden? Against Newcastle, we really tore them apart. That first half was unbelievable. I would advise anyone to go back and watch it. Have a look at just how good we were, how well we moved the ball, how much we carved Newcastle open, and just the damage that we did to them time and time again. The fact that we went in 1-0 down at the break is a travesty, but we came back and won, and that confidence shone through against Olympiakos. You could see the way Arsenal were moving the ball from the very beginning of that game. The first 5 minutes were absolutely electric. They couldn't deal with us. Neither could Newcastle. In both games, we really should have put them to bed much, much earlier. It was the same against Port Vale, a much easier opponent, but we scored very early and then we didn't go on and get the goals. We didn't kill the game early enough. And this is a trend that's been happening recently. But our attack looks absolutely electric. And I'm going to walk through some of the things. I've got examples, I've got videos, and I've got things to point out that's really changed at Arsenal in recent weeks. And one thing that you will see circled in nearly every video that I've got, every clip that I've got over the attacks that I've got picked out, is Leandro Trossard. His position is really interesting. The way Arteta is using him, to me, feels like an experiment to how we may see Ødegaard and Eze be used together at Arsenal when they start, and Trossard when he starts on the left. It gives us that tactical flexibility. If you've got Eze at 10, Trossard on the left, you can play the similar system. Same if you've got Ødegaard as an 8-10 with Eze on the left. You can play it, you can work in this system. And we saw it against Olympiakos with Trossard and Ødegaard together. This flexibility is something that we haven't had before, and it's something that's very, very different. But one thing that I would point out, one of the things that Arsenal have right now that we maybe didn't have a month ago is players that can look after the ball. Very, very good technical players that are very good in tight spaces, but also are so technically gifted that they can move the ball up the park very quickly. Tactics only get you so far. Execution is ultimately what wins games, and players are decisive in those situations. A player messes something up, suddenly that move breaks down and you're down to the other end of the pitch defending. Tactics don't win games. They give you a shape to play within, they give you a structure to rely on, but ultimately it's about the decision-making of the players on the field and their execution on the day that decides things. But I'm going to look at a few examples. I'm going to start with Martinelli's goal last night. As you can see, Mikel Merino gets the ball deep. He gets it, and you can see Martin Ødegaard just sliding between the lines, gets the ball, skips past a couple of men with ease, and you can see Gyokeres just ahead of him, but it's Leandro Trossard that I've circled. Look how infield he is here. And this is a theme that you're going to see a lot of. Trossard playing very, very infield on the half space. This is very contradictory to what we hear about Arteta and how he likes to use his left winger. We hear a lot about Arteta loving a touchline winger. And Eze will be a winger that's going to have to get chalk on his boots. Martinelli's given no freedom. All these things that we hear are actually, the evidence shows they're not always true. Martinelli is a player that seems to be more comfortable on the touchline when he's played on the wing, but we also see him coming in field and being instinctive. When he's instinctive and he really reacts to things, he's unstoppable. But the problem is Martinelli's also a confidence player. And when his confidence dips, he does find his home out on the flank and he doesn't seem to get himself into the positions where he can really kill teams. But on this occasion, you see Martin Ødegaard plays that ball through. Gyokeres is nowhere near favourite. I'm just going to go back to that, where the ball comes through to him. He is quite a bit behind the defenders, works his way through. But what you can see here, when Arsenal are through, front three, we've got a 3v3 in this situation. Gyokeres has just easily moved his man onto the floor. I'm too strong for you, mate. Down you go, on the floor, and he gets his shot away. Martinelli's following in. This goal doesn't happen without Martinelli following in. But you can also see on the other side, Trossard is following in. Trossard is creating that man that if the keeper pushes the ball the other way, he's there to pick it up. Martinelli in this instance gets it and obviously keeps following through, and the ball goes into the back of the net. 1-0 Arsenal. Now, the problem was we didn't keep going. And just after we scored, we had a great opportunity to go straight back into the 2-0 lead. You look at it here. This all starts with Martin Ødegaard gets the ball in our box, hooks it over his shoulder, and it's cleared. Martinelli competes with the ball. It bounces back, and Martin Ødegaard gets it, and he releases it first time down the line to Martinelli. Now, you see Martinelli in this position. What's your first thought here? You're looking at Viktor Gyokeres. You're looking at a player who's running forward. Arsenal have an overload here. We've got a 2v1. But look at Martinelli's body position. It's closed off. It's closed towards the right-hand side of the pitch. He is only looking straight and to his right. He's not looking over to his left to the acres of space that Viktor Gyokeres is running into. That means Martinelli takes a big touch here, and then the defender's able to recover. You can see Gyokeres keeps running here. Martinelli keeps running. But again, you can see Martin Ødegaard is charging up the pitch to create that overload and create that support. And as he's progressing up the pitch, Arsenal again have three attackers really making a break for it. And Mikel Merino just behind, really trying to come in and create for Arsenal. This is something that we're seeing more of. We're seeing numbers come up the pitch together. And I've got other examples of that from the Newcastle game. I'll look at the Trossard shot where he hits the post. You can see the ball. Jurriën Timber gets it very, very early on in the pitch, just at the edge of our kind of the middle third of the pitch. You can see Joe Linton's coming to close him down here. Timber gets it straight down the line to Gyokeres. Interestingly, look at Ez's position here. Look how advanced he is. He's running straight through into that kind of centre forward position. Gyokeres does brilliantly here, gets it, pops it off to Saka. Saka comes running in, and this pass for me was what really opened it up. You can see Joe Linton's trying to break his ankles because he's a big thug and he can't play football. Gets that ball straight across the pitch into Declan Rice, whips it around from away from Joe Linton's tackle and away from Bruno, who's really standing there ready to pounce and win that ball. And Declan Rice gets the ball. Now you can see the streams of red shirts coming up the pitch. Look at this. We've got Saka to the right of Declan Rice. We've got Trossard to the left, Eza ahead of him, and Gyokeres to the other side. So Rice now has an option. Does he pop it inside to Saka, who has got the option to go outside to Viktor Gyokeres, or does he go out to Leandro Trossard? He opts to go to Trossard, who gets the ball into his feet and shoots. But look at the number of players in the Arsenal box, in the Newcastle box when Trossard shoots. This is what's standing out to me. This is why the whole handbrake on thing is a bit rich. Arsenal now have the quality back in the team. The players have returned from injury. Eze's had a month with the team. He's now settled in. Gyokeres has kind of got over his pre-season where he didn't have that time training with the team, and he's now familiar with his teammates. Arsenal at this point, about 25 minutes into the game, just after not winning a penalty, have 5 players in the Newcastle box. Newcastle, by contrast, have 3 men in the box and Tonali running into it as Trossard shoots. This is a big, big sign that Arsenal are a team that are very much willing to commit man forward. And in this instance, again, I've talked about highlighting Trossard. Again, look how infield he is. Look where he is when Declan Rice is playing that pass. He's right at the edge of the box. He's in that left half space, and Arsenal have a big overload. They've got a 2v1 here. You can see the man squaring up to Declan Rice, and he's thinking, where do I go? He's not sure if Rice is going to pop it inside to Saka or to the outside. And it's all about player availability. Movement makes passes actually happen. Yes, the execution of the pass is what's judged, but it's the movement of the player that creates the space and allows players options to go to. And again, you look at the penalty incident at Newcastle. Gabriel wins the ball very deep. It's Eze who gets the ball. We saw the same thing against Man City, where Eze gets the ball deep. And you can look at the number of players that Newcastle have forward at this point. Arsenal have numerous players at the back. And the line has always been the faster it goes forward, the faster it comes back. With a player like Eze in the team, Arteta said that he was going to give him the freedom to play. He didn't buy him to stick him out in the touchline and force him to play robotic football. He said he was going to give Eze freedom to play. And that's exactly what he's done. First game, he was accused of playing on the touchline. He traveled all over the park. In the Athletic Bilbao game, again, he traveled infield. He started wide a lot of the time, but he ventured infield a lot, and his key actions all came in the half space. On this occasion, he was starting as a 10. You can see it carries it through the middle, pops that ball over the top. But what's interesting here is Saka gets it. He's competing for the ball. Jacob Murphy pops it back to the keeper. It's a poor pass, but look at Viktor Gyokeres. He's so on his heels. And I've also highlighted Leandro Trossard again in this position. Look how infield he is. We keep being told about Trossard, Martinelli, Eza. When they play on the left, they're touchline wingers, and Arteta doesn't give them freedom. Well, tweaks have been made to this Arsenal team to get Trossard almost playing as an auxiliary midfielder and offering us a 4. So when teams go man-to-man against us, we have that overload. We've got that space, and that extra man in midfield is allowing us to pop the ball around teams and go 1 touch, 2 touch, and move the ball up the park fast. And on this occasion, Gyokeres is so alive to it, goes through and should have had a penalty. Keith Hackett has spoke out very, very strongly against it. And it's one of those where we're hearing a load of nonsense. But again, I highlighted players on their toes, ready to go. He goes down. Look at Saka. He's straight out to win the ball. And that ball goes to a drop ball after the penalty is not given. Arsenal had the ball. Whenever the Jared Gillett pointed to the spot, Arsenal were in possession of the ball. It ended up going back to Newcastle, a rule that I do not understand. But Saka was alive to it. He is ready to run in and get that ball and try and continue attacking. And that's the big thing that we're seeing. We're seeing numbers going forward in bulk. But I mentioned Leo coming in and making that overload in midfield. He's someone, by giving us 4 against 3 every time, the fullback doesn't quite know what to do. So if that fullback's coming in filled, it's very similar to having an inverted fullback. So whenever you're playing with an inverted fullback, they give you the extra man in midfield from deep. When you've got your winger doing that and almost playing as a wing fielder kind of thing, they are very difficult to pick up because the fullback's in a position of, if I come in filled, I'm getting in the way, I'm leaving my kind of line exposed, and that's leaving a position where someone like Mikel Merino can drift out, where he can cause problems. But the big thing is committing men forward. And if you look at Eza in the Newcastle game, again, this move starts with Merino. Gets the ball in the centre of the park, plays it out to Timber, and Timber carries it, gets his head up. This wasn't the best cross. But what you can see is when Timber looks up, there are multiple Arsenal players. For me, I want to see him carry this ball a bit further. Ultimately, it ends up in a big chance for Arsenal. But it's one of those, this wasn't the best cross. But you can see he's got 4 men to aim for. How often did we say last season when our players got the ball and advanced up the pitch, they had 1 player to aim for? They had no one to aim for. And we weren't committing men into the box except for Mikel Merino. On this occasion, the ball bounces out and Ez is alive to it. He gets that ball, gets it in his left foot, down hard and low against Nick Pope. And this is a brilliant save. This is one against most keepers, it goes in. And Nick Pope has his weaknesses, but shot stopping is not one of them. He's very like Donnarumma in that sense. He's kind of like a Team U Donnarumma. If you bought him from a cheap website, you'll get Nick Pope instead of Donnarumma. He's a player with similar weaknesses, similar strengths, but they're just not to the same level. So that's the big thing we're seeing now. We're seeing players advance. We're seeing players in attack. And we're also seeing players being given the freedom to move. We saw when Eze came on against Olympiakos and him and Saka switching wings, the two of them coming on together, and Saka pops up on the left to score his winner. But when he scores that, Eze's out on the right. And again, we're seeing Ødegaard being given the freedom to roam. And that's a major part of this. You look at Gyokeres here. You look at the block from his shot. Ball comes in. People talk about Arteta not being adventurous in his play. This game started by David Raya breaking the ball through 2 sets of lines. He's being closed down. The gap to play it through is minuscule. Raya played it into Ødegaard. Ødegaard sends it out wide to Lewis Skelly, who carries up, and Martinelli's header goes just wide. But that was 4 passes up the field that completely opened them up. And that was Arsenal moving the ball quickly. And again, you see it here. Gabriel, when I mentioned Arteta not taking risk, you have Gabriel sliding the ball through an area so tight like this. You can see the area that he has to get it through into Martin Ødegaard. It actually almost catches Ødegaard off balance, but he gets the ball. He actually turns one way before he gets this, then turns back, sees the space, and you can see here, this is very similar to him against Brighton a couple of years ago when we beat them 4-2 on New Year's Eve. Ødegaard gets the ball, he gets his head up, and Gyokeres is flying. He's pointing exactly where he wants it. He knows where that ball's going. and he can see the space that Odegaard has to pass into. And the minute he gets that ball, he's away. Now, one of the big things here is having that runner in your team, having that player that is willing to go. And I mentioned Martinelli getting his head up, and it would be remiss of me not to do the same for Viktor Gyokeres here. You look at the ball in this position, Gyokeres is running through and he's determined to score. And I want to see that from my striker. I want to see that selfish streak, and I want to see them scoring goals. But equally, I want to see Arsenal killing games. Martinelli let the ball run right the way through when it looked like it was going to go into the net before tapping it in for Gyokeres. On this occasion, Gyokeres is single-minded. He's got his head down. He's running towards goal. He has no idea that Martinelli is there. So again, we're seeing Arsenal with a 2v3 here, really a 2v2. And if Gyokeres gets his head up, he can square this ball to Martinelli. This is something that might be a case of familiarity with his teammates, but ultimately he's there and he can play that ball, but he takes it too far. The angle closes out and he doesn't quite make it. But what's interesting about this move is that Gyokeres actually takes the touch that Thierry Henry was critical of in the first game. Henry said that he needs to go across the defender. He did that in this game. The problem is that Gyokeres doesn't have the agility in the hips, the ankles, and the upper body that someone like Thierry Henry does. He also doesn't have the same accelerative burst. Gyokeres is like a steam train over 20, 30 yards. He keeps getting faster. However, that spring that Henry had just isn't there. He's not an Isaac. He's a much, much more kind of batter and ram, very physical, solid striker. But what's interesting is the ability that he has to make and time those runs. Because what we're seeing is Arsenal picking up those runs. Martin Ødegaard getting his head up, and he knows that run's being made, so he's playing that pass. A lot of the criticism last year around Ødegaard was of not playing those passes, taking that extra touch. But I would ask, what runners did he have to play that ball to? Ahead of him, he had Ethan Nwaneri on the right, ball to feet player. Mikel Merino, who's a midfielder playing as a false nine. Again, very much a ball to feet player and can't run in behind to save his life. And on the left, Leandro Trossard, who we are now using as almost like an auxiliary midfielder coming in field. But again, very, very tricky, very good on the ball, very good at looking after it, but not a player that you often see running onto the ball. Yes, there are exceptions, but the runs that Ødegaard is picking up in this game against Olympiakos were not available to him last season. They are a result of someone like Viktor Gyokeres being in the team. We're going to see Noni Madueke coming back and making them. Kai Havertz will make them. Bukayo Saka can make them. There are multiple players. Gabriel Martinelli is another one who can make those. But this wasn't the only time that we got forward very well in this game. You look at this. Ball comes into midfield. Pass straight into Martinelli. It was quick. It was decisive. Zubimendi gets the ball straight into Martinelli. He comes, gets the ball, pops it off to Viktor Gyokeres first time, who gives it straight back to Martin Ødegaard, who moves it upfield. And once again, the minute that ball's passed back, suddenly Arsenal have 5 players all running forward. And again, I'm going to talk about Trossard's position. Look where Trossard is throughout this. When that ball's played in, Trossard is about 5 yards from Martin Ødegaard. And this was a theme of last night. We saw Trossard being very, very close to Ødegaard, almost in a straight line, one ahead of the other, and adding that extra player in there. And then that ball breaks, and we see it, and Trossard starts going wide. He gets the ball and he goes wide. Ødegaard has the option to play the pass. But again, you look at the box. Arsenal have 3 players in the box and Martin Ødegaard at the edge of the box. This cross ultimately doesn't go anywhere, but by the time Trossard plays it, he's got 2 men in the box competing with 2 defenders to aim for, and Martin Ødegaard making that underlap and run to give him the option to pass to. You can also see Mikel Merino is in a position at the edge of the box where he's lined up for a shot. So when we talk about the handbrake on and we talk about the criticism of Mikel Arteta, what are we really asking? Are we asking for the shackles to be freed and for players to go all over the park with zero responsibility? Or is this what we're asking for? Because you look at the Olympiakos game, you look at the Newcastle game, Arsenal created chance after chance after chance. The problem was we didn't execute them. And that's down to the players. Mikel set them up well. We've got the defensive structure. We can rely on Saliba. We can rely on Gabriel, Jurriën Timber, Declan Rice to bail us out of these situations, even players like Zubimendi as well. But the big thing is what we can't do is really can it give players complete freedom? Because if you've got complete freedom, when you go backwards, the defensive responsibilities start to wane. Also, when you go forwards with complete freedom, the relationships that exist on the pitch aren't quite there. But one thing I want to finish on is a timber move. One of the biggest criticisms of Arsenal has been central threat, creating from central areas of the pitch. We are a team that go wide, but if you look at the last two games, we have had a lot of our threat throughout the middle of the pitch. And this one's really interesting. So this is one where, again, it's 1-0 Newcastle, and you look at where Newcastle are playing. Arsenal are often criticised of going around the block. We go around the block so often, but again, I want to highlight where Trossard is. Top left, top of the box, and he is in the half space. He has given Arsenal that extra man in and around the box to play in. He could be 5 yards ahead of Calafiori, pushing the Newcastle line back, giving us an option to cross that ball. But he's gone into that space. And the fact we're seeing this time and time again suggests that this is tactical. It's not something that Trossard just decided to ghost into that space. He is going into that space repeatedly. And that to me is a trend. And when trends happen, we have to look at them. On this occasion, Calafiori gets the ball straight into Zubimendi, who plays it across to Declan Rice, Timber, Saka, and next minute, Saka's found Timber in a nice area, and the ball falls to Eze. On this occasion, Eze does what he does. He skips past his man, and this is one of those moments where I always say, let your ballers ball, let them go and play. And I've paused it here because I want to highlight the number of Arsenal players in the box. I also want to highlight the position of Leandro Trossard. So he's gone from the left half space to approaching the center of the box. And look where he's now running. He's running towards the ball to show himself, make himself available. And you look at the number of Arsenal players in the box at this time. So you've got Saka at the edge of the box, Timber going into the box, and you've got 4 other Arsenal players in the box, but you've got a Newcastle defence that's completely camped in there with every player except for Voldemata. Again, look at the position of Gabriel. Look how high up he is. And teams say that Arsenal aren't attacking. Eze gets the ball, skips past his man into Trossard, who has found himself that position on the edge of the box. So he's taken a man with him. Suddenly, someone's focusing on him on the centre. And then that ball comes in. Zubimendi gets it straight back out. Suddenly, Newcastle don't know where to go. You can see everyone's pulled right into the centre of the park. But actually, there's a man there past to in Calafiori, and Saka is starting to get more space on the right-hand side because everyone's been pulled central. That's because Timber's charged his way into the box. Eze's dribbled at someone as well, and Trossard's just moved right into the mix. I've circled Jurriën Timber in this. Ball comes over. It was a brilliant header, one of those fantastic moves that should have resulted in a goal, except for another great Nick Pope save. But the point I keep making here is Trossard coming into the centre. Now, you imagine Eze doing that. You imagine having Martin Ødegaard in the centre of the pitch, allowed to roam like he did against Olympiakos. Saka on the right. Suddenly, Saka's got space to be able to go around onto the left-hand side and pop up like he was doing against City, like he was doing again against Newcastle, and like he did against Olympiakos. Against City, I thought whenever it was happening, Saka's being given a free roll because we just need a goal. But actually, there was more to it. That felt tactical now that we've seen it a few times. We saw it against PSG last year. We saw it against Real Madrid. But now we're seeing it on a more frequent basis. And with Eze in the team, with Ødegaard back, we've got technical players who can look after the ball in small spaces, but we can also make the pitch very, very big at the drop of a hat. If you've got those players that can play a small-sided game, pop the ball around in between each other, and then the next minute ping it across the park with ease, like someone like Declan Rice can do, get it into your fullbacks, the likes of Jurriën Timber, Ricardo Calafiori. Suddenly teams are stretched, they're unsettled, and they don't know where to go. They don't know who to follow. And this is how Arsenal can really kill teams. But with players like Leandro Trossard moving into positions that they don't normally take up, it allows other players to go around them and go into the wings and really hit teams down that side. But ultimately, this is a really exciting time. In both these games, Arsenal have created a plethora of chances and just not taken them. Both Newcastle and Olympiakos probably should have been 4 or 5-0 wins. But ultimately, We didn't take our chances when they came. The Newcastle game, we went 1-0 down. They just went into a really solid mid to low block. And Olympiakos, by contrast, came out in the second half full of confidence with a great press. And they were really, really well organized, and they really made us struggle for it. But what you can see here is a blueprint starting to form. You can see the way the ball's being moved. It's being moved quickly, and it's being well looked after by technically gifted players who can also run. That's the key thing here. These players can run, they can dribble, they can carry, they can do everything that we want them to do. And that is so exciting. And when you consider we've got Havertz, Nketiah, Madueke, and Jesus still to add to this group, it's an unbelievably exciting time to be an Arsenal fan. But tell me what you think. If you've enjoyed this video, please drop a like, please comment on it, tell me what you think, and please subscribe to the channel. Thank you for everyone who's watched. We'll catch you again very soon. Have a great day.
You're now listening to the Arsenal Therapy Podcast.